Sometimes when you engineer drums, you have to work in smaller spaces than ideal or ones that just don't sound very good. What do? Drum room samples to the rescue. Drum samples are one of the most common things you will ever find in music right now. Everybody knows about drum samples. It's really hard to find bad drum samples these days. Good drum samples are all over the place. What a lot of people don't think about is reinforcing the room mics with room samples. And not just one room sample, not just two, sometimes 3 or even 4 to create a unique space that you might not have been able to capture whenever you had to record in a small room that literally had no room sound at all, or if it just sounded bad and you want to replace the rooms. Today we're diving into a live recording session that I engineered with my buddy Anthony Rogers, who goes by the artist name AREAUX, and my good friend Christian Meza, who's on the drums, is an incredible drummer. I'm going to show you what it sounded like before, because we recorded the drums in a really small booth since it's a live recording and it's like, think Snarky Puppy Lingus style. We didn't have enough space in the grand room to have the drummer there and all that stuff, all in the same place. So we stuck homeboy in a booth. And the booth, it sounded good, but it's small, it's a booth. So drum room samples to the rescue. So I'm gonna show you what it sounds like before, and then after I add in just a snare drum room sample and how massive of a difference it is. The main thing with drums that you really want a good room sound for is the snare, which is arguably the most important part of the song. If you're doing an indie record, you don't really need a big room sound anyway, but if you aren't and you want a big, larger than life drum sound, drum room samples, especially on that, dude, I'm telling you, on that snare, bro. The session isn't fully mixed yet. It's just little quality of life things that, I wanted to do I got excited and started messing with some stuff. The drums are in a pretty good place, and it'll give you a good idea of what it might sound like when it is mixed. And follow AREAUX. I'm gonna link his stuff down here. And without further ado, let's get right into the track. So we are here in the track. This is Give Me Life by AREAUX. I'm gonna play a quick little snippet of it so you can get the lay of the land. And then I'm gonna go down and break down the drums and show you how this snare room sample really just transforms the entire thing. Like I said, it's not fully mixed yet, but it's in a pretty good spot to where you get the idea. So it's a dope song. It's a really, really dope song. This is all live recorded, by the way. All of it's live recorded. It's a couple of overdubs, but who cares? So now we're gonna get into the fun part, which is the drums. So this is the drums soloed. Christian is such a good drummer. He knows how to hit a drum really good. Literally the only sample that's in here is the snare room sample. That's it. Everything else is just really good engineering and really good drummer and good drums. Now we're gonna solo the snare. Now watch what happens when I add that snare room in there. That's not reverb, that's a snare room sample. I will die on this hill. A snare room sample is a million times better than a snare reverb ever can be, ever will be. I'll die on that hill. Just make the hill really tall and I'll go up there. But the snare room sample is just, it's literally a live recording of a snare exciting an acoustical space. You can't get that with a reverb. You just can't. Snare room samples are very, very special, and as you can hear here, it just totally transforms the snare. The transient is incredible from Christian, and the snare is tuned really, really well. The snare just right out of the gate sounds awesome. But when we add that snare room sample in there, it makes it feel like it was recorded in a much bigger space than it was. I'm gonna put on the screen how big the space was so you can get an idea of literally how small this booth was. So I'm gonna take it out while we're in. It's so good. It's just so good. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play this with the bass guitar key. Honestly, I'm just gonna do an instrumental, just the instrumental right now. So you're gonna hear what the instrumental sounds like all together and see what this snare, what this really does. Night and day. It doesn't just transform the snare, it transforms the entire vibe and the feel of the drum track and the instrumental. So this is a production choice. This is a production choice that can work in mixing, but the thing is you have to understand, is it okay to put this in there? Sometimes it's not going to be okay, sometimes it doesn't need it. Other times, this can really save the day. And I intended to do this from the beginning because I understood when we did the input list and we saw the space that it was small. You know, we weren't going to get a massive, you know, room sound. And I'm just trying to supplement in samples essentially what was not possible to capture in the room. So the space, if we recorded it in that large room instead of the smaller booth, we'd probably have a drum sound that sounded like that, honestly, just from the get-go. So I'm not really adding something that doesn't make sense. You know, it should have been there. Now, you may be asking, well, where's the kick room sample and the tom room sample? And sometimes that's cool. I just felt on this, we didn't need it. Because if you listen to the drums, I'm just going to play the kick. I'm going to go through each one. It's just really good and punchy already. I don't need much. And whenever I play it with the overheads, you're going to hear, that's one thing. These overheads, I love the overhead sound we got. I'm just going to play the overheads for you with nothing. Like, to me, that's quintessential overhead sound to me. You know, that's as good as you're gonna get in a tight room. And I kind of like that the overhead sounded that way in a tight room. It was a tight room that wasn't a dead room. You know what I mean? It's tight. It's not dead. It doesn't sound terrible. Like, the room didn't sound bad. It was a good sounding room that was just small, you know? So that's why we added all this other stuff to make it sound. When I say all this other stuff, I literally just mean the snare room sample. There's nothing else that's actually going on here. And, you know, the toms, same thing. I think that they cut enough through the overhead to where I didn't need a room sample, and I don't need big old boomy toms. This is more of like a jazz fusion, R&B, alternative, gospel-y kind of thing. So I don't need the biggest, loudest radio rock drum sound. I just need a little bit more length on that snare to make it feel like it wasn't recorded in a box. So I'm going to show you what the drums sound like here in this chorus with just the drum and the bass locking in, and how taking in that snare room and out the snare room just changes the vibe. Also, shout out to Spencer on the bass. Dude killed it also. And now with everything in, I spelled it differently. Still can't say my name. Hey, hey, well, there's a will, there's a way. And like on that hit, just the snare room just makes it so good. Watch what happens if we do that same hit and I take it out. Say my name. Hey, hey, well, there's a will. Versus. Say my name. Hey, hey, well, there's a will. That tail, man, that tail is everything. Well, that's it for this video. Next time you do some drums, try to add a room sample in there at least to your snare. See what it does. If it sounds bad, then get rid of it. But try it. Trust me, it's like putting MSG on your food. You really can't go wrong. So thank you. And remember to use drum room samples when applicable. Please don't go crazy with this and piss off some drummers. Bye.